Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming today on this July 5th. I want to tell you a little something about this flag. The Gadsden flag, so named for Revolutionary General and statesman Christopher Gadsden, representing his home state of South Carolina, who gave the flag to the fledgling Navy to fly aboard the flagship of one of the earliest naval exercises of the Revolutionary War era. Many believe that it draws its snake imagery from Benjamin Franklin's Join or Die, published in the Pennsylvania Gazette, May 9th, 1754. The cartoon, which depicts the colonies as separated sections of a rattlesnake with the words Join or Die at the bottom, to make note of the arguments over the extent of France and Great Britain's land holdings in the Americas. This cartoon is often attributed as the first political cartoon published in an American newspaper. Franklin viewed the rattlesnake as a most interesting animal, as variations of it could be found in all the colonies. In Franklin's letter published in the Pennsylvania Journal in 1775, "'Tis curious and amazing to observe how distinct and independent of each other the rattles of this animal are, and yet how firmly they are united together, so as never to be separated but by breaking them into pieces. One of those rattles, singly, is incapable of producing sound, but the ringing of 13 together is sufficient to alarm the boldest man living." United together, stronger together. Unity, it's a common theme that runs through our UU faith and principles and hopes. In my youth, growing up in rural Pennsylvania, the few times that I saw this flag was usually associated with strong conservatism, and interestingly enough, would be seen not too far away from the Confederate battle flag. So how does an image born of unity and strength in working together become associated with images that divide us? This symbol has come to be flown by those that argue that, like the revolutionaries who fought what they considered an oppressive government, they too protest an oppressive system. But in this adaptation over the years, it's come to be associated with an agenda often in conflict with the tenets of the founding fathers and the unity they sought. This image of a coiled rattlesnake was deployed at demonstrations against healthcare reform in 2009. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer even signed into law a bill which provided protected status for it to be used in these demonstrations. NPR reported in March of 2010, as the House of Representatives prepared to vote on health care overhaul legislation, a group of Republican lawmakers unfurled a Gadsden flag from the balcony of the Capitol building to rally support for opposition of the Affordable Care Act. The Gadsden's flag imagery and message have often been intertwined with others. The snake can be seen coiled around firearms and directly on the Confederate battle flag. I've also seen the image merged with a Thomas Jefferson quote that appears under the dome of the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C. "For I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." Jefferson wrote these words in a letter to Dr. Benjamin Rush on September 23, 1800. This convergence of the idea of fighting hostility and the perception that conservative Christianity or a particular interpretation of Christian teachings is under attack can be seen on merchandise from buttons to tote bags. I was thinking about this and what it means. I heard a piece on NPR featuring conservative ministers reacting to the historic Supreme Court ruling on marriage equality. David Lane, founder of the American Renewal Project, is working to bring pastors together into a political movement. Lane argued, "I don't think there's such a thing as separation of church and state. This was not established as a secular nation, and anybody that says that it is, they're not reading American history." Yet the author of the quote about the altar of God, Jefferson, also wrote in 1802, "I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state." Further in my research, I ran across a 2008 sermon from the Reverend Craig Scott of the UU Fellowship of Tulum County, California. Among the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, there were Baptists, Congregationalists, Presbyterians, Episcopalians, Quakers, Unitarians, Roman Catholics, Universalist, and Haim Solomon, Jewish. He was an important financier of the Revolution. So we had a pretty good smattering of religious coverage there. It doesn't sound to me like division. It sounds like what it really was. Yes, a group of property-owning, wealthy white men, but men from a pretty diverse set of ideologies sitting down and doing something for the greater good. But despite the unity in men of different faiths coming together and agreeing on a wall of separation of church and state as they founded this nation, the intersection of "Don't Tread on Me" and religion has grown in the last 8 years. It's created a new picture of the Gadsden flag that stands in my memory. Images of it flying with Confederate battle flag and flags that declare "God Bless America," all waving together at rallies decrying the ACA, our president, marriage equality, etc. This convergence of "Don't Tread on Me" and "God Bless America" is even now featured on a Bradford Exchange men's engraved pendant. Don't tread on me on one side, God Bless America on the other. God Bless America, the song, written by Irving Berlin in 1918 while serving in the Army at Camp Upton out in Yaphank, was written during a time of unimaginable loss of life on the distant shores in World War I. It was revived and published as a peace song in 1938 after Adolf Hitler's rise to power. Berlin, who was Jewish, introduced it on Armistice Day, removing "to the right" from the lyrics and replacing with "through the night," since it might have been construed as a call to the political right. The peace song's title has become a standard closer for many a politician. The first president to say it was Richard Nixon. He dropped the phrase while doing some damage control during Watergate, April 30th, 1973. President number 37, 184 years after Washington took office in 1789. Ford and Carter did not use the phrase, but Ronald Reagan ushered in the era of "God Bless America." Used in the acceptance speech for the Republican nomination, the phrase became his standard sign-off while in office. A majority of POTUS speeches have closed with this since, both Democrat and Republican. The authors of the book, The God Strategy, How Religion Became a Political Weapon in America, David Domke and Kevin Coe, wrote, "It's that God Bless America, true to its presidential birth on that April evening in 1973, has grown to be politically expedient. The phrase is a simple way for presidents and politicians of all stripes to pass the God and country test, to sate the appetites of those in the public and press corps who want assurances that this person is a real God-fearing American. It's the verbal equivalent of donning an American flag lapel pin. Few notice if you do it, but many notice if you don't." Today's July 5th. Yesterday was wasn't really the 239th birthday, was it? It's the day we celebrated it, though. A country where I can stand at a pulpit and talk about some of its history, and it was my choice and yours. I joined the United States Army on the 28th of February, 1990. I offered my service in exchange for some college money. I ended up narrowly missing a tour in Iraq twice and wound up starting a career and a family. I found this image in my research, had to include it. This is the vehicle that I operated while I was in the Army, and this is a picture of one in Iraq flying the Gadsden flag. I fly the American flag 365 days a year. I wore it on my shoulder. I pledge allegiance to it. I love this country, with its flaws and even with all the people who have views of it which are diametrically opposed to mine. We are all in this together. We absolutely have to work to get along, and we all have to protect it. So how do we do it? While the blurring of the lines between church and state have caused division in our country and inspired socio-political agendas that seek to oppress the rights of others, it's through the principles of our faith. One that celebrates not only the inherent worth and dignity of all, but giving a voice to all. Our public advocacy program, Standing on the Side of Love, sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist associations, has been on the forefront of social justice issues. It's been part of the fight for marriage equality. And reports from the UU General Assembly in Portland indicate some very tough conversations have been happening about confronting racism, even within our own faith, as our nation grapples with arguments about the Confederate battle flag flying on the South Carolina Capitol grounds in the wake of the terrorist act during a prayer service in a Charleston church this summer. The Ware Lecture at GA was from Dr. Cornel West, author, lecturer, and teacher at institutions such as Union Theological Seminary. In speaking of what he categorized as catastrophes visited on African Americans, women, indigenous people, differently abled Americans, and the LGBTQ community, and how to address these issues and move forward in unity, he asked, "America, do we have what it takes?" He concluded, "But one thing that puts a smile on my face, that when I come and see my brothers and sisters from UU and feel the authenticity of your spirit, I know you're not saviors or messiahs, but I have a feeling deep inside of me going all the way down to the bowels of my existence, that we have got folk in this room who are willing to go down swinging like Ella Fitzgerald or Muhammad Ali." I know there is more work to do, and our UU principles guide us forward to work for unity. Standing on the side of love brings people of all faiths and backgrounds together to work for social justice, and it is our belief in the democratic process and the separation of church and state that guides us to work for an equitable world and a system that represents us all. I look forward to working with everyone in this room to answer the call, "America, do we have what it takes?" And thank you for choosing to be a part of this conversation, and thank everyone who helped make this morning happen. Thank you.